Starting our video, we begin by importing React and the useState hook, which we'll use to track the dynamic changes in our layout. We also import our styles from a CSS module, which contains the styling for our grid and grid items. Within our dynamic grid component, we declare a piece of state called numColumns, initializing it to 3. This will dictate how many columns our grid will have. We also get the setNumColumns function to update this value. We then create an array of 12 items to populate our grid. Each item is simply a string labeled item followed by its index in the array, ensuring each item in our grid will display unique content. We provide a button that lets users add a column to the grid. When clicked, it calls the setNumColumns function, incrementing numColumns by 1. Similarly, we have another button that enables the removal of a column. It decreases the numColumns value by 1, but never goes below 1, ensuring the grid always has at least one column. Here is where the magic of CSS Grid comes into play. We define our grid container div, assigning it the grid class from our CSS module. The inline style dynamically sets the grid template columns property based on the numColumns state, repeating a fraction unit for each column. We iterate over the items array, and for each item, we render a div with the grid item class. This will display each string in its respective grid cell. The key attribute given to each cell is essential for helping React identify which items have changed. Moving on to the grid module CSS, you can see that the grid class sets the display to grid and adds a gap of 10 pixels between each grid item. The grid item class applies styling to our grid cells. Each cell gets a light gray background, a solid border, some padding for spacing, and center-aligned text, making the content within each cell easy to read.